My parents stole $80K in student loans under my name for my twin brother, but when they ghosted me after 3 months, I sued them, and they had to mortgage their house to pay me the $92,000 they never saw coming. I'm 23 years old, graduated from college about 6 months ago, work at an internship that pays decently, and I'm basically starting my adult life. Or so I thought until a few weeks ago, when I discovered that my parents screwed up my life in a way I still can't believe. And look, when I say they screwed up my life, I'm not exaggerating even a little bit, because what they did was so calculated, so deliberate, that to this day, I have trouble sleeping, thinking about how they could do this to me. I guess I should start at the beginning. When everything seemed normal and I was just a college student worrying about exams and final projects, with no idea of the time bomb my own parents were building underneath my feet. I grew up in a family that I thought was normal, middle class. Nothing spectacular, but we didn't lack anything either. My parents, Gregory and Deborah, always worked hard, or so they said, and I have a twin brother, Austin, who's basically my complete opposite in every way. Since we were kids, we were different. I was always the nerd who got good grades and read books. Austin was the popular one who cared more about his appearance than anything else. When we finished high school, I went to college because I wanted to study engineering and have a stable career, and Austin decided that college wasn't for him because he wanted to be a model. Yes, a model. And my parents supported him completely. Like, perfect son, follow your dreams. You don't need a degree to be successful. At the time, I didn't think much of it, because everyone lives their own life, right? But looking back, I should have seen it coming. I should have noticed how they always gave Austin whatever he asked for while they told me I had to work for things. During college, I worked part-time at various places, coffee shops, stores, whatever, to help with personal expenses, because my parents had told me from the beginning that they were going to take out student loans to cover tuition and major expenses, but that I had to step up and help with the rest. It seemed fair to me. Honestly, many of my friends were in the same situation, or worse. I calculated that when I graduated, I was going to have like $85,000 in student debt, which isn't small money, but it's manageable if you get a decent job, and I already had my internship that was probably going to turn into something permanent. Everything was going according to plan. I graduated with honors, got offered to stay at the company, started looking for an apartment to move out permanently, and I was excited to start this new stage of my life where I was finally going to be independent and a real adult. About a month ago, I received an email from the bank, one of those automatic emails they send you when you have to start paying your student loans. The grace period had ended and it was time to face reality. I opened the email expecting to see the $85,000 I had in mind, maybe a bit more with interest. And when I saw the number, I almost fell out of my chair. $170,000. $170,000. I read the number like 5 times, thinking it was an error, that there was a glitch in the system or something, because it made no sense whatsoever. I knew exactly how much my university cost per semester. I had done the calculations 1,000 times, and there was no way the debt was double what I expected. I felt like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water on me. Literally, my hands started shaking while I was holding the phone. I called the bank immediately. This has to be an error. Please tell me it's an error. The customer service person reviewed my account and confirmed that no, it wasn't an error, that there were indeed loans for $170,000 in my name, and that they had all been disbursed correctly during my 4 years of college. I asked if I could see the detail of each loan, when they had been taken out and for what, because I needed to understand what the hell had happened. They sent me all the documents by email, and that's when I saw that there were loans I didn't even know existed. Additional loans that had been taken out each year for amounts that didn't correspond with my tuition or housing expenses. And all of them, absolutely all of them, had my name and my information, but I didn't remember signing anything like that. I hung up with the bank and immediately called my parents because they were the ones who had handled the whole student loan thing from the beginning. My father answered, and I directly told him, "Dad, what the hell? Why do I owe $170,000 in student loans when they were supposed to be like $85,000? There was a silence on the other side of the line that lasted like 10 seconds, and I knew in that moment that something was very wrong. Finally, my father said, "Son, We need to talk about that. Come to the house this weekend and we'll discuss it in person. And I told him, no, I'm not going to wait until the weekend. Tell me now. What's going on? I heard him say something to my mother in the background, and then my mother took the phone. And she was already using that voice she uses when she knows she did something wrong, but is going to try to manipulate the situation so that I'm the bad guy. My mother started with, Adam, my love, I know this is going to be difficult to understand, but I need you to listen with an open mind and remember that everything we did was with the best intentions for both of our children. And I was already hyperventilating at that point because when your mother starts a conversation saying the intentions were good, you know things are very bad. I told her, Mom, just tell me what you did with the extra money. Tell me why there's $85,000 extra in loans in my name. And she, with that soft and manipulative voice she uses when she wants me to feel sorry for her, told me, well, not all that money was for you. A part was to help your brother with his modeling career because he also needed support to follow his dreams just like you. I don't know how to describe what I felt in that moment. It was like my brain had shut down for a second and then turned back on in pure fury mode. I told her, are you telling me that you took out loans in my name to give money to Austin? Loans that I'm going to have to pay? And my father, who had grabbed another phone, said, Adam, don't see it that way. We treated both of you equally. You had your college education and Austin needed seed capital for his career. It was fair that both received the same financial support from us. Fair. He said the word fair as if he really believed what he was saying, as if taking out $80,000 in loans in my name without my knowledge to give them to my brother was something remotely fair or legal. I asked them exactly how much they had given Austin, and my mother admitted it had been like $80,000 in total over the 4 years. $80,000 of my borrowed money in my name for my brother's supposed modeling career. And when I say supposed, it's because Austin isn't a model. He's never been a professional model. Literally, he just has an Instagram where he uploads photos and he's done like 2 small jobs in 4 years. I yelled at them over the phone. And were you planning to tell me this when? When was I going to find out that I have double the debt, I thought. My mother started crying, because that's her tactic always. Cry so that I feel guilty and stop being angry, but this time it didn't work. I told them I was going to their house that same day, that we needed to resolve this immediately, and I hung up before they could say anything else. I drove like an hour and a half to my parents' house feeling a mixture of anger, betrayal, and panic. Panic, because $170,000 is an amount of money that was going to take me decades to pay, that was going to affect every financial decision I made for the rest of my life, that basically they had chained me to a massive debt before I could even start my adult life for real. When I arrived at the house, my parents were sitting in the living room with those faces of, oh no, our actions have consequences, and I walked in and directly told them, I need you to explain to me exactly what you did, when you did it, and how you plan to fix it. My father started with his speech about how they had wanted to give Austin the same opportunity as me, that it wasn't fair that only I received financial support for my future. I told him, Dad, the difference is that I'm going to have to pay my student loans with my work? Is Austin going to pay the $80,000 you gave him? And my father went quiet because obviously the answer was no. My mother kept crying and saying things like, we never thought you were going to get so angry. We thought you would understand. We're a family. And I told them, a family doesn't commit financial fraud against their own children. Because that's what you did. Do you realize? You took out loans in my name without my consent. That's illegal. I demanded they take me to Austin immediately because I needed to talk to him too. Austin lived in an apartment like 20 minutes from my parents' house. A pretty nice apartment considering he didn't have a stable job. When we got there and knocked on the door, Austin opened with a confused face. Like, what are you all doing here? I walked straight into his apartment and told him, did you know that Mom and Dad took out $80,000 in loans in my name to give to you? And by the expression on his face, yes, he knew. He didn't look surprised or confused, just uncomfortable, like a kid who just got caught doing something wrong. Austin tried to defend himself, saying that Mom and Dad had told him the money was theirs, that it was a gift, that he didn't know all the details. And I told him, and you never wondered where so much money came from? You never thought it was weird that suddenly they had $80,000 to give you just like that? I asked him what he had spent money on, although I already imagined the answer. Austin admitted he had used it for trips, for parties, for expensive clothes and accessories. To invest in his image as a model. $80,000 on parties and trips, while I worked part-time during college to pay my personal expenses. I wanted to hit him, honestly, but I held back because it wasn't going to solve anything with violence. I told Austin that he was also responsible for this, that he had accepted the money knowing something didn't add up, and that I expected him to contribute to paying it back. Austin literally laughed and said, "Bro, I don't have that money. I already spent it." As if it was something funny, as if destroying my financial future was a funny anecdote to tell at a party. My parents were standing there, not saying anything useful. My mother still crying and my father trying to calm the situation, saying there was no need to fight between brothers. And I told all of them, "You have 2 weeks to pay me. Back those $80,000. If you don't, I'm going to take legal action against you, and I don't care if you're my family or not." I left that apartment and drove back to my place, feeling like my entire world had collapsed. I couldn't believe that the people who were supposed to love and protect me had done something like this to me. That night, I didn't sleep. I spent it looking up information about financial fraud, about student loans, about what legal options I had. I discovered that technically, if they had forged my signature or taken out loans without my explicit consent, I could report it as fraud and potentially be free of that debt. But that meant my parents could face criminal charges. Part of me wanted to do exactly that, but another part still had that stupid feeling of family loyalty that made me hesitate. The following days were horrible. My mother called me constantly crying, saying that I was destroying the family. How could I be so cruel to threaten them with lawsuits? A father sent me long text messages trying to justify what they had done, saying that in 20 or 30 years I was going to understand that they only wanted the best for both children. Austin said nothing, literally ghosted me completely. I kept working, smiling at the office as if nothing, but inside I was dying of anxiety thinking about how I was going to pay that monstrous debt. The 2 weeks I had given them as a deadline passed and, surprise, they did nothing. Well, not exactly nothing. My mother called me on the last day of the deadline saying they had talked to a financial advisor and that they were going to start paying me in monthly installments. That they couldn't give me everything at once, but that they committed to paying $1,500 a month until completing the $80,000. It wasn't ideal because that meant it was going to take like 53 months, more than 4 years, but it was something. I accepted because I thought at least they were trying to fix the mess they had created. The first 3 months they complied. I received the $1,500 each month, and I applied it directly to the balance of my student loans. I started breathing a little easier, thinking that maybe, just maybe, we were going to be able to resolve this without getting legal. But in the 4th month, I didn't receive anything. I waited a few days thinking maybe they had been delayed, sent them a message asking about the transfer and they didn't respond. I called them and they sent me straight to voicemail. A week passed, 2 weeks, and nothing. They had completely ghosted me. My own parents were ignoring me after having financially screwed me over. It was at that moment that I made the decision to hire a lawyer. I looked for one specialized in financial fraud and family law, explained the whole situation to him, showed him all the loan documents, the text messages, the call recordings I had made. Yes, I had started recording conversations after the first confrontation. I had a feeling I was going to fight it, need evidence. The lawyer told me I had a very solid case, that what my parents had done was clearly illegal, and that I had 2 options. I could report it as fraud to the authorities, which would potentially free me from the debt, but would destroy my parents legally and financially. Or I could sue them civilly for the $80,000 plus damages and legal fees. I decided to go for the civil lawsuit because, as angry as I was, I didn't want to see my parents in jail. Maybe that makes me weak or stupid. I don't know, but it's the truth. My lawyer prepared all the documents and filed the lawsuit formally. My parents had to be legally notified, and when that happened, suddenly they could find their phones to call me. My mother called hysterically, screaming, "How dare I sue my own family, that I was a horrible son, that I was turning into a monster." My father was more calculated, tried to negotiate, say that if I withdrew the lawsuit, they would go back to paying the monthly installments. But I was already tired of their empty promises. The legal process was emotionally exhausting. I had to give statements, provide evidence, sit in meetings with lawyers where I basically had to relive the whole betrayal over and over again. My parents hired their own lawyer, who tried to argue that I had given implicit consent because I was living with them when some of the loans were taken out, that I was a legal adult, and that I should have been more attentive to my personal finances. It was a ridiculous defense, but it still made me feel like garbage, as if somehow it was my fault that my own parents had defrauded me. Austin never appeared in any of this. He didn't even come to the hearings. He simply erased himself from the situation completely, as if he had nothing to do with it when he had been the direct beneficiary of the stolen money. I tried to contact him a couple of times to see if at least he could testify or contribute something useful, but he blocked me from all social media and changed his number. That's how loyal my twin brother was, the person with whom I'm supposed to share a special bond for having been born the same day. The case didn't go to full trial because, after several months, when they saw that I had solid evidence and that I wasn't going to back down, my parents agreed to a settlement. But they had to pay the full $80,000, plus my lawyer's fees, which were like $12,000, so in total they paid me $92,000. They had to take out a loan against their house to get the money, which they told me 1,000 times hoping I would feel pity or guilt, but honestly, I felt nothing. They had created this problem themselves, and now they had to face the consequences. When I received the settlement money, I applied it immediately to my student loans. Going from owing $170,000 to owing $78,000 felt like being able to breathe for the first time in months. I still had debt, of course, but it was the debt I had expected to have originally, the debt I had planned for, could handle with my salary. With my now full-time job and an aggressive payment plan, I calculated I could be debt-free in about 6 or 7 years, which is way better than the decades it would have taken with the $170,000. But obviously, winning the case legally doesn't mean you won in the emotional or family aspect. My relationship with my parents is completely destroyed. We haven't spoken since the settlement was finalized like 2 months ago. My mother sent me a message on my birthday, which was also Austin's birthday, obviously, telling me that she would always love me, but that she needed time to forgive me for what I had done to them. Forgive me. As if I was the one who had committed fraud. I didn't respond to that message and probably never will. Austin still isn't talking to me, which honestly is a relief because I don't know what I would say to him if I saw him. My entire extended family found out what happened because my parents obviously told their version where they are, the victims. So now I have uncles and cousins who see me as the horrible son who destroyed his family for money. The truth is, I didn't destroy anything. They destroyed our family when they decided it was acceptable to commit fraud against their own son. I just defended myself and demanded justice, and if that makes me the villain of this story for them, so be it. I've had to go to therapy to process all this because the level of betrayal I felt, and still feel, is something that doesn't go away easily. My therapist tells me it's completely normal to feel a mixture of rage, sadness, and even guilt. That the fact that I took legal action doesn't mean I stopped loving them, or that the loss of that family relationship doesn't hurt. Some days I wake up and think, maybe I was too harsh, that maybe I should have found another way to resolve this that didn't involve lawyers and lawsuits. But then I remember that they ghosted me after only 3 months of payments, that they never had any real intention of fixing what they had done, that if I hadn't taken legal action, I would probably still be chasing them for crumbs of money while my debt grew with interest. I made the right decision, or at least the only decision I really had if I wanted to have any chance of a stable financial future. My life now is strangely quiet compared to the chaos of recent months. I work, live in my small but comfortable apartment, pay my bills, make my student loan payments. I don't talk to anyone in my family, and honestly, I don't miss them as much as I thought I would. I guess when you discover that the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally were capable of betraying you so deeply, they're no longer really family. They're just people who share your last name and some childhood memories. I've been building my own chosen family with friends who supported me through this whole process, with coworkers who became confidants, with my therapist who helps me process everything. The other day, I was paying my monthly student loan installment, and I realized something. Even though this year was probably the worst of my life, I came out of it stronger and more independent than I had ever been. I learned that you can survive even when the people you trusted most betray you. I learned that defending what's right sometimes means losing relationships you thought were important. I learned that family isn't automatically sacred just because you share blood. That respect and trust are earned with actions, not titles. And mainly, I learned that sometimes doing the hardest thing, the thing that makes you feel like a villain, is exactly what you need to do to protect yourself and your future. I don't regret anything, and if I had to do it again, I would do exactly the same thing.